Hey there, Stampers. Happy Friday. Welcome to another Facebook Live. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I'm here to talk to you about vellum today. All things vellum. So this is a little bit of a different format than my usual Facebook Lives. I'm going to share a bunch of projects, some tips on how to use vellum, different things that you should know about vellum, and I'm going to share a couple different ways to use it as well. All right, so first of all, what is vellum? Vellum, now Stampin' Up! Carries these sheets. They are vellum cardstock sheets, so they're a little bit thicker than regular vellum. Good morning, Joan. Good morning, Shauna. Which makes it great for if you want to heat emboss or if you want to dry emboss as well. So it's a nice heavyweight vellum, which is really, really good to work with. And then, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, good morning, Sue, good morning, Shirley. We have something new in the catalog. They are these vellum square doilies. Can you see that? They are so, so pretty. So there's several things that you can do with these as well. I actually just got mine in and haven't had a chance to play with them too much. I made one quick card this morning, but some of the things that you could do with this is you could use it as a stencil. You could sponge it or brayer it to change colors. Like there's lots of different things that you can do. Okay. And right now I've got a little incentive. If you place an order of $50 or more with me using this month's host code, which I'll post in the description above, or below if you're watching the replay, I will send you a package of these for free with your thank you card. All right, so that's from now until the end of the month. Okay, so let's talk about vellum. Okay, first of all, because this is, as you can see, it's see-through. So you have to be a little bit careful on how you adhere it. So I did a little test this morning. I used two different colors of cardstock. So I used a darker color. This is Mossy Meadow. And then this is Purple Posy. So I chose a lighter color and a darker color to show you. This is adhering the seal to the cardstock and then putting a piece of vellum over top. So you can see through it. This is multi-purpose glue, where I put a little bit of multi-purpose glue and then I have a sponge that I use with some of my glue. So I just kind of brushed it so that there wouldn't be any like bigger globs of it. You can see through it. This is a mini glue dot. And then on the lighter color, seal, multi-purpose glue, and a glue dot. So that's something else to consider when you are using vellum and creating your project, depending on how you're positioning it. And I'll give you some tips on other ways to adhere it to your project, because you don't always want to use a light color. But if you're going to have a problem trying to figure out where to add your adhesive, then you may want to choose a lighter color cardstock to put it onto. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. I wanted to do a little test because I was pretty sure that it was different on both, on a light and a dark, but wanted to test it out and show you guys the difference. So the light, if you look really closely, you can see it, but from further away, you can't. So this is actually a really good option. Okay, so let me share a couple things here with you. Okay, here is a project using those beautiful square doilies. I just created a quick 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch card using that beautiful dandelion stamp set. I can't remember the full name. And then this is that really pretty Purple Posy ribbon that comes in one of the suites. And then of course I added my Flowers for Every Season gems. Really, really simple. The navy blue twine is retired, but I just added a little bit of that on there. Okay, so a really quick, simple card. And so for example, for adhering this, what I did was I adhered it. I knew that I would add a greeting in the center. So I adhered it just using some seal and just behind where my greeting was going to pop over top. Okay. And then I used dimensionals to adhere my greeting, and the dimensionals are also holding it in place. Okay, so I strategically thought that out. There's no adhesive around the edges, although because there is a little bit of adhesive underneath the little dots, That's another way that it's holding it in place. Okay. Another thing that you could do to adhere vellum is you can cut it longer. So like this piece, I think this was a 5-inch piece, strip of vellum. And what I did was I wrapped it around and adhered it at the back. So there's no adhesive at the front. So you can do it that way as well. You could do it longer and tucked at the top and tucked at the bottom. So if you just strategically think about what you're going to do with your project, you can get creative with how you're going to adhere it. The other thing is, if I wanted to do this more of a banner and not have it wrapped around, then you could use some fine tip glue underneath where your birthday is. And you could even use another, like a mini glue dot or some adhesive underneath that happy as a way to adhere it. Okay, so that's another creative way. Now, some of the other things that you can do with vellum. Here is a card that you guys have probably seen before or may have seen before. And this, you can punch or die cut shapes. Okay, so this is just the daisy punch and the medium daisy punch. I punched out 2 of them and then layered them one on top of the other. And it just gives a more soft and subtle look. Whereas if I had done that in white or yellow, it would have been a bit more of a prominent feature on the card, and this just makes it a little bit more subtle. Okay, so that's another way that you can use vellum. And then here is another example of just using a die cut shape. So it's a softer addition to a project. So maybe you don't want something that is as heavy, then vellum is a great option for that. Okay, and then here is another one. I use this technique often. This isn't my favorite card because I do not like these flowers colored in with the blends. They're just too bright. I need to redo this and stamp it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp it on to watercolor paper or shimmer paper, emboss it with white, and then watercolor them in. So I just find that it's too in your face for me. Okay, so here I used a layer of vellum over top of a busy patterned paper, and it just softens the pattern a little bit, but still lets it show through because it is a beautiful paper. It's just a little bit busier, and because this is such a big focal point, if I didn't have that vellum, it would look really, really busy. Okay, so that's another way that you can use it, and I do this technique often. Okay, you can also use it as a soft layer. So if you, again, don't want something to be very harsh, so just like I did on this card with the die cut shape, you can just do a layer. So this was a swap card that I received from, I think it was Mo Dickey. So she's got the So Saffron layer, and then she has a layer of vellum before her layer of Misty Moonlight. So, and it adds to the card. All right. Okay. And then this is another great way to use vellum, is you can actually use it as your card base. Again, you have to be a little bit more strategic about how you're going to put it together, how you're going to finish your card. So for this one, I did a little strip of DSP on the bottom, and then you can see some white poking out there. So what I did, so that I had room to write a message, is I cut a piece of Whisper White that was just a little bit taller than my DSP, so that I have a little bit more room to write my message on there. The other thing that you could do is you could do a base and have more of a focal point. So for example, you could do this whole thing on the front of a vellum card base, and then just make your inside layer this size and line it up and stick it inside, and that is where you would write your message. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so you just have to think it through and think, okay, what is the inside of my card going to look like? Because you can see right through. So if I had stuck like a white piece on here, let me grab a piece of white cardstock so I can kind of show you. Well, this is here's a smaller piece. Okay, so if I had decided that I wanted to put a white layer on the inside here like this, so lined up like that, it changes the look of the card. And you know what? That doesn't look bad at all. You can definitely do that and it would still look good. But you also have to take into consideration when you write on that, you're going to see that writing through, which could take away from the look of the card. Okay, so there's another way that you can use vellum. All right, another fun way that you can use vellum is you can use your embossing folders. So here I use the Parisian Flourish 3D embossing folder, and I just ran it through with vellum. So you can see that there's no adhesive under here. I chose not to put any adhesive, but I added my adhesive in behind here. And then I just used 3 different ribbons here. We've got some Just Jade, we've got some of the crinkled white seam binding, and then this is that linen trim that is from, I think it's the same one as this purple posy. Playing with Patterns, I think it is. I think it's this one, and then a really narrow navy satin ribbon that's in there. So, and this is a simple card. So I used the Tasteful Labels, I think it is, to cut that out. The greeting is from the stamp set that coordinates with that, and then I used added a little butterfly stamped in Just Jade with a couple rhinestones in the center. And of course I had to use white baker's twine because you know what, linen thread doesn't always work, right? So I didn't want the linen thread in there. I didn't want it to be a little bit more rustic. I wanted the white. So all right, so that's another way that you can use vellum, and the texture on that is just, oh, it's so beautiful in person. All right, another thing that you can do is you can stamp on vellum and then emboss it. So I chose to emboss it in black, which we don't carry black embossing powder anymore. You could stamp it with StazOn if you wanted to do this look, or you could stamp it and emboss it in a different color. But then if you flip it over, you can use your Stampin' Blends and color in the image. And you don't even have to be very careful. And there's no point shading because you can't really see the shading in behind. When I flip it over, you'll see what it looks like. So I'm using the dark Blackberry Bliss, and I'm just coloring in all of the petals. And then the leaves I'll color in using, let's just get the tips here, dark Mossy Meadow. I do find that darker colors work best. The softer colors, they're just a bit too light, and you don't see the color on the backside as well, if at all. And then dark soft suede, excuse me, dark soft suede for the center. And then you flip it over and you get this beautiful, almost like a stained glass look. All right, and then you can add that to a card. So for this one, I did a little 3x3 card. Good morning, Sheila. Good morning, Rhonda. Good morning, Angie. Oh, thanks, Shauna. So I used the coordinating die from the Sunflower Dies to cut it out, and then added a bit of gold thread behind, just stamped the word hello. I used the Tasteful, what is it called here? Tasteful Textile embossing folder. Love this embossing folder. I think this is my new favorite embossing folder. Added just a little bit of texture in behind, and then you have this beautiful little love note. All right, so that's another way that you can use vellum. And then the last thing I want to show you is you can color your vellum. So in the past, we have carried colored vellum, and we've carried textured vellum, and we've carried printed vellum. So there's lots of different types of vellum that you can get. But if we now only carry the 2 types of vellum, so just the regular vellum and the doilies. So you might want to have vellum in a different color. You might want to add your own texture. You can even create your own printed vellum by just stamping images on it. So let me share one of the easiest ways to add color to your vellum. I mean, apart from coloring the back with the blends, but if you didn't want to use a stamped image, this is a great way to add color. So, and I'm going to step it up a little bit, and I'm going to create like an ombre kind of look. So I'm using our sponge brayers. I'm going to use Seaside Spray and Misty Moonlight, and we're going to create an ombre, a blue ombre piece of vellum. All right, now if you haven't used our sponge brayers before, what you want to do is you want to be gentle. You don't need to push hard. Just roll it, and you'll see that I'm picking it up each time and bringing it back. You don't want to just go like this because you're only inking a portion of the brayer. Okay, so I'm bringing it up and rolling it. That way it's consistently inked all the way around. And I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. And I'm not pushing hard. If you push hard, then these, especially when you're inking, then these will actually end up scratching your ink pads, and you don't want that. Okay, so I'm just going to ink it again. This time I'm going to start closer to the middle because remember, I want it to be the lightest at the top. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the darker color. So I'm going to use Misty Moonlight. And these brayers come, you get 2 handles and I believe 4 of these sponges in a package, and they're really reasonably priced. And these you can just rinse out afterwards and use them in all different colors. So you can see that I've used it in navy, but I've also used it in some pinks and purples. Once you rinse it out until you squeeze it and the water goes clear, it's good to use in any color. Okay, so I'm just doing the same thing. I'm inking with the blue, and this time I'm going to start on this side because I want it to be darkest here and gradually get lighter. It's hard to tell with the blue in the background, but I'll bring in a cleaner white piece to show you guys once I'm finished here so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring this in and just kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then let's see what it looks like here. I thought afterwards, oh, wouldn't this be beautiful if you did like a rainbow? So if you did it in all the different colors, wouldn't that be pretty? So there you go. There's a little ombre piece of blue vellum. And then you could turn around and create something like this. So here I used Rhonda Wade's Ridiculously Awesome stamp set. So I made sure that my background, so that vellum that I just brayered, made sure that it was fully dry. So I let it sit there for a little while, and then I used my heat tool to make sure that there was no wet ink on there, because vellum is not super porous. It takes a long time for ink to dry. So once it was dry, I gave it a quick swipe with my embossing buddy and then stamped You Are My Sunshine with Misty Moonlight ink, and then sprinkled it with some clear embossing powder and then heat set it so you can see that it's got a bit of shimmer to it. Then I cleaned my stamp, and on a separate white piece of cardstock I stamped it in Bumblebee, and then used the 3/4 inch circle punch and punched out the You Are My, and then used a 1/2 inch circle punch here, punched a hole, and then added the 2 colors of ribbon, and then tied it with some white baker's twine. You guys are going to see me, I know white baker's twine is retired, but you're going to see me use it all the time anyways, because I absolutely love white baker's twine, and it's a staple in my opinion. So there you go. And I left this so that it wasn't adhered. So if I want to write a message on there, although I probably won't, because you'll be able to see the printing underneath, but I could write a message on the back and use it as a tag. But I just liked how it kind of moved. And even if you're sticking it on a gift and it's kind of off kilter like that, I think it looks really good. All right, so let me pull back in the samples so you guys can see them all, because I know some of you joined late. So here we've got the brayered ombre vellum. Here we've got the stained glass look. Here we have the embossed, dry embossed, and these ones are both heat embossed. Here we've got just a simple example with the square doilies. I'm gonna run out of room here. Here we've got a vellum card base. Here we've got just a vellum layer. All of these techniques can be used when you're scrapbooking as well. I have often done layers of vellum in behind photos, and it just gives it a nice soft matte. So if you're going for that kind of a look, that's another option. Here is one where it's die cut. Here's one where the DSP is muted with it. Here, let's move these up here. We're gonna have to overlay some of these here. And then here we've got punched vellum, and then the very first one that I shared where the vellum is wrapped around and tucked under. All right, so hopefully that gave you a ton of ideas to do with vellum. This was actually one of the suggestions that I do from one of my customers and friends, Shirley. I think she had suggested doing things like this. So I'm going to try to incorporate these maybe once a month or maybe once every 6 weeks, where I kind of pick a product, focus on it, and give you a ton of ways on how to use it. So I hope you guys found that useful. And if there is a product that you would like me to focus on, please just comment or send me a message. I would love to hear it because I'm always looking for ideas for different videos. All right, so thanks so much for watching. And next week, I'm not sure what is going to go on with lives because I'm kind of unavailable next week. We're heading out of town for just a little bit. So I'm not sure if I'm still going to pop in and do a live. So I'll keep you guys posted, but don't hold your breath for lives next week. All right. Okay. So have a fabulous weekend and we'll chat with you soon.